Hi, my name is Graham Hulme, and I'm the Vice President of Product Management at SOFTRAX. This week's audio blog focuses on Amazon. And obviously, we're in the week of December 3rd, 2018. Amazon, that term, that company is used, by many because of the holidays. And so, in alignment with that, but also due to the fact that we identified some key activities between Amazon and the SEC over the past few months that represent highly instructive and informative interplay on 606 between the company and SEC. And really, our focus today will be solely on Amazon, and this week's audio blog will chronologically outline these communications and really our takeaways from each communication between the company and the SEC, so that it can really help companies use it as a working example of how they need to present information in filings, and then how they can respond to questions that come forward in SEC comment letters. So let's start out with two filings and one comment letter that were notable to start. So the first filing is Amazon's 10K for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2017. And the second filing of focus in the SEC's comment letter was the 10Q for the quarterly period that ended in June 30th, 2018. Those two Amazon filings were the focus of the SEC's first comment letter to Amazon back in August of this year, 2018. And in that, it starts out focusing on Amazon's 10K, and because in that 10K filing, the company discloses quantitative information on the number of global Amazon Prime members it has, along with how many shipments were specific to those Prime members. And due to the prevalence of Amazon Prime, in the market and in our lingo and nomenclature, it makes sense that Amazon would share that information in its 10K filing, because on its own it certainly holds value to the readers of their financials, and so makes sense that Amazon would share it. But it also leads into a question about, okay, if you have that many Amazon Prime members and that many shipments, what are the financial impacts and benefits that those members had on Amazon's financial statements? And so the SEC comment letter goes after that point by asking for information on net sales that could be attributed to Amazon Prime members versus those that are non-Amazon Prime members. So there's that distinction in their filings. And so from our standpoint, this is a logical ask. And it's a logical ask for no other reason other than Amazon Prime is touted as a high-profile product / service that a highly popular and successful company offers. Almost everybody knows what Amazon Prime is. So, an analyst, an investor, or just a reader of their filing or in financial statements, it would be a logical question after Amazon puts forward their number of Amazon Prime members as to what that correlates to in terms of sales and revenue information. And so, that's the first ask that the SEC puts forward in this comment letter. Then it pivots to the 10Q from June of 2018. And in that, it effectively, the focus was on reconciling qualitative points that Amazon made in the filing specific to presenting revenue on a gross versus net basis for similar products and services. So at one point in the filing, the company notes that it presents revenue on a net basis for digital media content, while later in the filing it states that it presents revenue on a gross basis for digital media content. So the SEC asks, okay, why is there a difference in certain cases? When do you act as a principal versus an agent in cases? Provide more information on those fronts. And so it's a solid working example where the SEC asks a company to clarify as to how it arrived at its decisions specific to 606. And it's not enough for companies just to simply state what was done and it's in the endpoint of its decision. They have to explain what went into the decision and how they arrived at it with qualitative and then quantitative analysis. So, beyond the above, the SEC also slides in a few questions related to the timing of revenue recognition for specific services that Amazon references in its filing. So Amazon obviously responds to this comment letter back in August, and it effectively, the company's response is notable because out of the gate, it clearly pushes back on the SEC's request. It directly states that it does not think providing net sales for Prime members is meaningful or useful. And so, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's the crux of it. And so what's notable in the company's response is that, it's stiff-arming and pushing back on the SEC, but the answer is highly focused on what makes the most sense from the company's standpoint, from its management's standpoint, and it states that within the response, rather than attempting or putting forward an approach that at least meets the SEC halfway on their line of question. So, I think there's a juxtaposition here. There's what the company thinks is meaningful and useful, whereas the SEC's question is likely coming from a viewpoint of what would be useful to investors, analysts, and other parties that are reading the filing. And so Amazon does put forward a strong answer that pushes back in that regard. And so the answer certainly is robust in terms of providing qualitative details to support its position. And that level of detail certainly, you could argue, opens the curtain in terms of providing information that on its sales, marketing, and operational approaches for Prime memberships that the public might not know about before ASC 606. Nonetheless, the answer is definitely Amazon focused, and so that was notable. I think when the company, when the company responds to the SEC's comments on its 10Q filing, the company appears more, it's more favorable. It plays ball with the SEC. Amazon goes to great lengths in its responses to address the what, why, how, and when points in terms of, it answering the questions related to the 10Q points made. And I think what's important is that, and this has come up in other blogs we've posted, and then it's also come up on, Big Four and Tier 2 accounting firm, consulting firm articles, is that the level of detail that is required in disclosures for 606, and this is an example of it when you read Amazon's 10Q, their response to the SEC's comment letter back in August for its 10Q questions. It opens the door. It shines a light on details about the company, its operations, its financial reporting, what have you, that really just wouldn't happen in the past in our view. And so that's good, obviously, but it's also could be, it's something that companies have to be cautious about because their competitors can read that information and it can be used to create a competitive advantage over the company. So it's something to watch as we move forward with 606. So the SEC then puts forward a second comment letter. And the second comment letter is focused on the company's answers to the 10Q questions from the first comment letter. And so this comment letter goes back at Amazon and it pushes for clarity in terms of getting direct answers on the timing of revenue recognition for specific services that Amazon shares or provides information about in its filing. And so the SEC puts forward a direct line of questioning which offers prescriptive guidance so that the company has to provide direct answers, and the direct answers have to really answer the question, all right, do you recognize revenue for these services at a point in time or over time? And if so, how did you arrive at those determinations? And so, the answers that the company gave in response to that comment letter, they play ball, as I mentioned earlier. On this particular one, they gave what we've seen other companies do. They gave a revised disclosure approach, and they broke it down by service in terms of stating clearly for services A, B, and C, we recognize revenue either at a point in time or over time, and here's why we determined that to be the case. And so, again, it does open the door because it is a pretty robust response, and so Amazon's competitors could read it and potentially gain value to get more insight on how Amazon operates. But, whether they can use that to create a competitive advantage or not is another question. I think overall, we would strongly encourage you to review this series of filings, comment letters, and responses, because it really is instructive. It's instructive in that it is a notable, highly popular, and successful company. The SEC is pushing that company on the ASC 606 front, and the company's responses, in some cases, really address the SEC and meet their requests head on. In other cases, they stiff arm it and explain why. So pretty instructive, pretty useful. You can access the filings and the company's responses, comment letters, etc. We have all the links on our website. It is under the December 3rd, 2018 Weekly Revenue Recognition Roundup. It's under the blog section of SOFTRAX.com and RevenueRecognition.com. You'll also find a number of other blogs, articles, links to webinars, what have you. I strongly encourage you to go there. We appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon.